Hi guys, and welcome back to Pen and Pencil Academy. Before we start the video, make sure that you've hit that subscribe button and turned on your notifications. Remember, if you have any comments and if you don't understand anything, if you have any extra questions, leave them down in the comment section. In this video, we are going to go through how to actually use SOHCAHTOA, so the 3 golden formula. So if we just go back to the, if we write SOHCAHTOA out, we get sine of x is opposite over hypotenuse, cos of x is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan of x is opposite over adjacent. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a few questions with triangles to see how we can use these 3 formula. So here is our first triangle. The question is find angle x to 1 decimal place. So what we need to do first is label our triangle. So we know that over here, this is the hypotenuse because it's the longest side of the triangle. And actually, just before we even look at the question, we can see that it's a right angle triangle. So that is why we're using SOHCAHTOA. And then if we go on to looking at the opposite, here, this is opposite, which means this is the adjacent side. So what we need to look at is what we have and what we're looking for. So we have the opposite and the adjacent. So if we look here in these equations, which one has opposite and adjacent? It's tan. So that means we need to use this formula. So if we write out tan of x is equal to opposite over adjacent, it would be tan x equals to 3 over 4. Now, in order to find out the value of x, we need to do the tan inverse of 3 over 4. Now, that you can do in your calculators. So we have the tan inverse of 3 over 4 to give us x. And as we have to give it into 1 decimal place, we would get 36.9 degrees. Yeah? So what we've done with the question is we've looked at, first of all, actually, we've labeled the triangle, and then we've looked at what we have. We've matched it to one of the formulas, and then we've plugged in the numbers, so we substituted it in to find out the value of x. Now, this step over here might seem confusing, but this button, if you press shift and then tan on your calculators, you'll get this function here, tan to the minus 1, which is inverse tan. And when you put in 3 over 4 in those brackets, you will get 36 point, and then you get a long decimal, but you only want it to 1 decimal place, so you would get 36.9. Now, let's move on to another question. So here is our second triangle. Now, if we look, this is not a right angle triangle. But if we know, and if we look at the triangle, we can split it down the middle. Now we can use these formulas. So the first thing we should do is redraw the triangle with the correct lengths so we don't get confused here. So here we've drawn the triangle again, a smaller version of it. And it's 5 meters here because we've halved this length. We've split it right down the middle. And then, as we did over here, we need to label this triangle. So the opposite is here, the hypotenuse is here, and the adjacent is here. Now, we need to match this triangle with the equations. So we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So A and H is this one. So it's cos. So we're using cos of x is equal to the adjacent, which is 5, over the hypotenuse, which is 10. Now, in order to find out the value of x, as we did here, we need to do the inverse of cos to get our x value. And in this case, if we plug that into our calculator, we will get a value of 60 degrees. Yeah? So just to go over it quickly, we did not have a right angle triangle at the beginning. So we had to split it down the middle and redraw the triangle. And then we labeled it and we matched it with an equation, with a formula. And then we substituted the numbers in to get our final answer of x. Now we're going to do one final example. Now, in this example, we are given the angle and we have to find out a length. That means it can be any of these equations. So, and the only difference would be is how we write cos of x, we would just write cos of 15 or tan of 15 or even sine of 15. So the first thing that we do again is we label our triangle. So we know that x is the hypotenuse because that's the longest side of the triangle. And then the opposite is here and the adjacent is here. Now, what are we trying to find out? Normally, we look at if we have, so here we've had the opposite and adjacent to find out x. Here we had the adjacent and the hypotenuse to find out x. However, we have the value of x, so the angle normally. This time, x is not the angle, it's the hypotenuse. That means we need to look at the formulas in terms of making sure that h is in the formula. So it's between cos x, the cos x formula and the sine x formula. So what do we have? We have the opposite. We need to find the hypotenuse and we have the angle. So O and H is actually, in fact, sine of x. So this is the formula that we need to use. So what we would do is we would write sine. Now, instead of writing sine of x, we write sine of 15 is equal to, now sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite is 6 over x. So that's the first line of working out that you need to show. Now the next thing that you need to do is rearrange for x. So x is equal to 6 over sine 15. Yeah? And what we do then is just put that into our calculator to find out the value of x. So x in this case would be 23.2 to 1 decimal place. Or we can say this to 3 significant figures, depending on what the question is asking. So just again, we've labeled the triangle. We need to look at what we have and what we need to find out, and then match it to the formulas. And once we do that, we substitute the numbers in and we rearrange the formula. So if you're a bit confused on how I got from here to here, if we drew this out as a triangle, and at the top we had 6, and here we had x, and here we had sine of 15. Yeah? To get x on its own, we would have to do 6 over sine of 15. That's what we would do. So that's how we got to this stage. And then here, that's just the answer. We can either, if it asked you for 1 decimal place, that would be the answer, and also if it was to 3 significant figures. So these are 3 different examples of how to use tan, cos, and sine. So all of the formulas in 3 different examples. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, and thank you very much for watching.